Pre-Calculus Semester 1 Final Exam Review. Let's get started with number 1. Given these formulas, find f of 5. Your input is 5. You find that right there. I have to decide which formula to plug it into, and I'm going to look at the restrictions on x over here and decide which one 5 falls into. 5 is greater than 2. Oops, let me undo that. Sorry, guys. 5 is greater than 2, so I'm going to plug it into the top equation only. So that ends up being 5 squared plus 3 times 5 minus 4. Okay, when I do the math there, you get 25 plus 15, which is 40, minus 4, which is 36. Number 2, find an equation for a line that passes through this point. So we're going to use y equals mx plus b form, but I can't do that until I identify the slope. You find the slope by doing y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which ends up giving you 8 over negative 4, which is negative 2. That is my m value. So this is going to be put in for m. I still have to find b. I can do that by plugging in my m and one of the x or y values. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go ahead and use this one. So if I plug in negative 1 for y, we said m was negative 2, x is 2, plus b. If I go ahead and solve this, I get negative 1 equals negative 4 plus b. When I add 4 to each side, I get 3 equals b. So my final equation is going to be y equals, and I'm only going to plug in my m and b values. So negative 2x plus 3, which happens to be b. Okay, if you need to write this down, you might want to pause it because I am going to erase the bottom of this so we can work on the next equation. Find the slope of a line perpendicular to 3x plus 4y equals 12. First, we have to get it in y equals mx plus b form to find the slope of the current line. And I do that by isolating y. So first I subtract 3x from each side. You're left with 4y equals negative 3x plus 12. I'm going to divide through by 4, and you're left with y equals negative 3/4 x plus 12 over 4 is 3. When I look at this, I find that the slope of the line is negative 3/4, but they said that they want the slope of the perpendicular line. Okay, parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So the slope of a perpendicular line would be opposite. Since it's negative, it would be positive, and reciprocal means to flip it over. So it would be 4/3. Again, I'm going to erase. So if you need to pause, please do so. Write it down. Okay, number 4. Find the slope of the line through these points. That's simply y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Be careful of the minus and a negative there. You do need both. You get negative 10 over 5, and you should reduce it, and you get negative 2. Number 5. Given f of x equals x squared plus 3x minus 5, find f of 2. All you're going to do is come on in, and you are going to replace any x value that you have with 2. So every x value here gets replaced with 2. I end up with 2 squared plus 3 times 2 minus 5. And when you do the math, you get 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. Again, pause as I am moving on to the next page if you need to write. Number 6, find the x-intercept for the graph. Remember, x-intercept is where your graph crosses the x-axis. Now, if you think about this, whether my point is over here on the left, on the right, further on the right, no matter what, I didn't move any up or down. So at all three of these points, whichever one would happen to be the x-intercept, the y value would be 0. So the easiest way to find the x-intercept is simply let y equal 0. So I'm going to plug in y for 0. You end up with 3x minus 0 equals 15. 3x equals 15. And x equals 5 once you divide through by 3. Excuse my sloppy writing. It's not easy to write on this iPad. So for number 6, the answer is, well, x equals 5. You should technically write it as a point. So our x value is 5. I don't know why it keeps doing that, excuse me. So my x value is 5, and my y value, remember we plugged in 0. So the y value is 0. Okay. Again, I'm going to erase, so if you need to write it down, please pause the video. Number 7. Given f of x equals 1 over x plus 3, which values would make this function undefined? The way it would become undefined is if the bottom equaled 0. So I do not want x plus 3 to equal 0. When you subtract 3 from each side, x cannot equal negative 3. That is the value that would make it undefined, because again, you cannot divide by 0. Number 8, describe the translation from y equals the absolute value of x to y equals the absolute value of x plus 3 minus 2. There's two numbers here that we have to look at. First, we have to look at the plus 3. That is inside with x, so it moves it right or left. Remember, x's do the opposite. They're stupid. So even though it's positive, it doesn't go right 3. It actually goes left 3. And then we also have to look at this minus 2 value. This value is outside, so it's not with x, which means it affects the y value. And it's negative, so it goes down 2. Number 9. Find an equation for a line parallel to x plus 2y equals 6, which passes through the point 4, negative 1. I'm going to go ahead and erase up here so we have more space to work in. So I'm going to work on number 9 above it. Okay, here we go. So first I need to find the slope of x plus 2y equals 6. I do that by solving for y. So first I subtract x from each side. I'm left with 2y equals negative x plus 6. And then I divide everything by 2. And now y is alone. I have y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3. Now you have to pay attention to what it's asking for here, okay? It asked for a line parallel. Parallel lines have the same slope. So I'm going to use this negative 1/2 as my slope. So m is negative 1/2. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the point that they give me down on the bottom here as my x and y value. So I'm going to let x equal 4, y equal negative 1. And I'm going to go ahead and plug those into an equation of y equals mx plus b. So y is negative 1, m is negative 1/2, x is 4, and we leave b alone because we don't know what it is. Negative 1/2 times 4 is negative 2. When I add 2 to each side, you end up with 1 equals b. In the end, the only thing that you're going to put in your equation, you're only going to fill in m and b. So I'm going to plug in b and m right here. So in the end, my equation looks like y equals m, which is negative 1/2 x, plus b, which is 1. I'm going to end the video here because it's 10 minutes. I will post another video to continue on with the review.